All right, guys, welcome back to the Right Now Powder Coating YouTube channel. We've got another great interview for you guys today. I am sitting here with Chad Fifield from Powder Coating Technologies out of Plymouth, Minnesota. Chad, thank you for the short notice. We've talked a day or two, but thanks for coming on and interviewing with us.
Thank you.
I think you have a very interesting story on how you got into powder coating, which is a very unusual way because from what I've researched, your business is fairly large in terms of powder coating. So can you give us a background on kind of your prior work history and then what got you into powder coating? And then maybe, I think you said you're fairly new. If you'll give us that timeline of when you took over, how you kind of transitioned and got the knowledge you needed to be able to run the business.
Yeah, sure. Again, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure talking to others in the industry. And so for me, I grew up in Minnesota. My previous career prior to powder coating was really kind of across two spaces. Post-college, I was in the military. I was in the Army for about 8 years, and then transitioned to the corporate world where I worked at Amazon in their operations kind of fulfillment space. Worked at Amazon for nearly 10 years, and then decided that it was, I was ready for a change, and had always had the idea of buying a small business in the back of my head, and started taking it a little more seriously and kind of dove in, did some research, developed, a checklist or criteria in terms of different businesses I was looking at. But, at a high level, it was something operational, warehousing, manufacturing, something that paralleled my experience, both kind of in the military and at Amazon.
Yep.
And I was fortunate to have found Powder Coating Technologies, which is located in Plymouth, Minnesota, where I currently live. So from a geographic perspective,
Super convenient.
Super convenient. And closed on the business really the beginning of the year. So I am a little over 8 months into role.
I think it'd be kind of interesting because we don't normally talk about that, but when you were looking for businesses to purchase, I assume maybe you used a broker or online service or something. Can you walk us through maybe what drew you to the powder coating, the specifics of it, not monetarily, but what the transition into the business looked like for you?
Yeah, I mean, from a search perspective, it was rather bare bones. It was me on the internet, just starting off with Google, and eventually finding my way to kind of some of these deal making sites. The big one being Biz Buy Sell.
Yeah.
That's actually where I found this opportunity. And so, through that process, you're able to link up with a broker, and typically that broker represents the seller.
Right.
The conversation, get some more information on the business, historicals, etc. And if kind of at that point, as a potential buyer, you're still interested in what you've seen, set up a meeting, typically after hours with the seller, because these deals are typically, want to be kept confidential from employees and whatnot. So I got to come visit the warehouse and meet the owner, the previous owner, and get a tour of the operation, see the space. It's a 20,000 square foot warehouse.
Wow.
Again, for me, I had no previous powder coating experience. So I came into this really not knowing much. And so, getting a tour and seeing the process, that was completely new to me. I didn't have a whole lot of context. But what was clear to me was that, the business had been around quite a while, over 30 years.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, had really long tenured employees. The average tenure is about 10 years. And looking further into stuff like customer relationships, again, long-standing relationships with really established companies across the the metropolitan area. And so checking off some of those boxes in terms of the business looks healthy, it's tried and tested, etc. I moved to the next step in terms of kind of agreeing on terms with the seller. We were able to move through that rather quickly, and soon enough, I had the keys to the building.
Yeah, that's wild. What was the onboarding like? Did you work a deal to kind of have him stay on for a while so that you could kind of learn the process? And did you do any powder coating classes, or did you hop in and code? Have you coded much? Give us what those first couple months looked like for you.
Yeah. As part of the deal and some of the terms, we did, the previous owner and myself, we agreed on like a plan for how long and in what capacity that he would be around to support. And generally that looked like, about a month where he'd be here full time, the next month part time, and then kind of after that as needed. And I'd say, that generally came to fruition, although, from day one, what I didn't realize or failed to kind of realize the extent of is obviously, I'm in charge of the administrative, all things administrative. And so, I guess maybe to take a step back, I did not inherit a kind of a large front office. And
Hmm.
so, stuff like payroll
Yep.
and bookkeeping, um, and getting many of the basic accounts, waste management, powder accounts set up. I had to do that quickly, because we were still buying things, we were still spending, we are still taking in work, and I needed to invoice, and so it was very difficult. I will say that to balance, kind of optimizing,
Yeah.
having the previous owner around and kind of getting as much information that I could from him with just keeping the ship afloat and
Right.
executing on the basics that I had to do.
Yeah, I would imagine it's pretty overwhelming to just come in on day one and you're like, holy crap, this is I have to run this thing now. And I mean, I have employees who come in and I just walk them through the basic steps of what we do, and they're overwhelmed. So put that on top of, like you said, having to work with your vendors and make sure your powder doesn't run out and make sure your customers are getting their parts on time when you don't even really know who all of your customers are. So
Right.
yeah, that would probably lead to some sleepless nights.
I would say the one piece to my experience, that's relevant to any kind of deal or new owner coming into a business. Like, one of the biggest things, I was super fortunate that one of the employees, that is my production manager, has been with the company for about 20 years,
Oh, nice.
um, and has kind of come up from working on the production floor to kind of now managing a lot of business development, customer relationships, and just the day-to-day operation has been a huge asset and
Yeah.
kind of fundamental to me getting up the learning curve, even past when the owner kind of stepped away, the previous
Yeah.
owner.
Yeah. That having that right hand person that can be there for you and answer the questions you're not quite sure of is pretty important, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
what what would you say your typical day looks like? Like what keeps you busy all day?
So I think, again, maybe high level, inherited a a business, a staff of a very slim front office. I think longer term, the goal is to probably build that out a little bit more, add some capacity to some of the business functions that maybe I don't, my value is maybe not best served in. But right now, I'm placing a lot of value on learning the fundamentals of the business, and so that means I'm wearing many hats, and often my day is me in the weeds. To your point, whether out on the floor
Hmm.
working with the guys, managing, continuing to manage, my bookkeeping, payroll, you know, planning out, the next day's schedule, checking in on schedule, ensuring, we're kind of tracking to our plan, for our performance just across a number of different metrics that that are available to us. So I don't know if that that certainly didn't really concisely answer your question, Dan,
Well,
in
I
terms
did.
of
I
my
mean,
day.
I totally understand what you're saying. I don't get enough time in my office to do those kind of things, and I think people underestimate how much time you unfortunately like. I like to be moving and out on the floor and that sort of thing, but there's definitely amount of time you need to be at your desk and working on that admin stuff. I can't tell you how many times I get home on a Thursday and I'm like, crap, I didn't run payroll. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, it can
Yep.
be a struggle to keep all that because I've noticed, at least with me running my shop, everything is in my head, but that doesn't mean it's in my employees' head. So I can walk out on the floor at any given time and know exactly what they should be doing, what should be next, and what should come after that. I'm always 10 steps ahead, where that's not really where they're best suited to know. So you got to guide them and lead them and make sure that everyone's on the pace. And I know, speaking of that, I know that you guys signed up with Steelhead recently. And they were nice enough to actually get me in contact with you. For people that don't know what Steelhead is a software that basically helps you bring in parts, quote parts, and manage parts throughout your facility. So you can keep track of where they're at and what stage they're in, and then when they're ready for development. It also keeps your customer up to date on all that. But before you started using that software, what kind of practices did you guys have in place to track all of the work that came in? And maybe give us an idea. Like for me, I'm a pretty small coder, so we have like a handful of customers. So for me, it's very easy to do it mentally. If you can give us a rough idea of you're managing 10, 15, 20, 30 people, and then how you managed it before, and then what Steelhead software did for you.
Yeah, great question. I would say that like 100 customers on, somewhat of a repeat, whether it's monthly or, some of those, being more weekly customers. So, but, that being said, 30 plus year company, when I'm just kind of starting and trying to digest all of this, like the customer list,
learn who's who. Yeah.
But that was a huge challenge for me when I first started, because I was coming from Amazon, where the amount of automation, technology, automation was, I've said it before, almost overwhelming, but it was readily available for nearly everything that you could need. So to understand, a problem set or a picture or performance, a few clicks of the mouse, right? When I came here, that was not the case. There was not an MRP or an ERP in place, outside of really QuickBooks from an accounting and maybe some customer relationship portal stuff. And so, what jobs do we have? When are they due? How many parts are they? That would be me knowing which filing cabinet or which stack of paper they were in, and potentially, those stacks correspond by, kind of what steps in the process they're in, etc. Invoicing, same thing, right? So when a job was completed, kind of paper, the same paper that essentially followed it, throughout the operation, would be sorted into, a pile. And then there was, very much a manual operation to get that thing, up into the computer and, mailed or emailed to the customer, and then kind of tracked offline through maybe a spreadsheet or some other filing process. And so, each process kind of had its own standard work, which was manual in nature and very much kind of paper based. And so it was very hard to kind of memorize those steps. And it was something, right, that, had I been doing this forever and I, had I developed it, it would be ingrained,
Yeah, you work up from a couple customers and it makes more sense.
So to kind of try and solve that, both just like managing the administrative piece of a purchase order, right? So, from quoting it, right, to receiving it, to managing it as it moves through the operation, to ultimately invoicing it and tracking on payment. I quickly, started to look for, what are some tech solutions that are out there.
Yeah.
I think, 1 or 2 days of, kind of thorough research online, seeing different ERP packages, before I stumbled on, the Steelhead website, which stood out for a number of reasons. There was kind of, a lot of information just readily available, right? Didn't require me to get a quote or
contact them. Then you get blown up with sales calls all the time.
Yeah. It seemed like a very kind of innovative company, right? That was, coincidentally very much tailor-made around powder coating, at least initially. And they had a wealth of videos, right? Kind of similar to this, where, real people are explaining its use cases. And it just looked like it checked so many boxes in terms of just managing, workflow and invoicing, but also just providing data to a business owner, right? And so we could start to build out, metrics and understand, what is our on-time delivery rate and what's our throughput and, what quality metrics are there and, how should we be measuring that? So we got it in March. We launched Steelhead in March. We deployed it, I think within 1 week, had one of the professionals come on site, train up the shop floor, train up myself, my production manager. And, it's to be 80% effective with it, you can get there pretty quickly because it's very user friendly. And it's been huge. It's certainly been top 3 best decisions I've made for the business.
Nice. Now you're gonna have to tell us the other top 2.
Well,
yeah, I talked to him a lot. I actually reached out to him a long time ago, and it just didn't make sense for my lack of customers. And then we had built up a couple months ago, pretty large, and I was up to 5 employees, and things were getting a little mismanaged on the floor. And where's this at? When's it going there? And all that. And so I reached back out to them, and then through downsizing again, we've just kind of put it on hold. But I know they're working really hard to make it more accessible to smaller companies like mine that just have a handful of employees. So I don't have it yet, but I'm not saying I'll never get it. I do think they're probably the best option for powder coaters out there. I don't even know if there really are. I mean, you could use other options, but they aren't really tailored to the industry. So they don't really, I mean, like you said, your key metrics that you're tracking, you'll know how long the part was in blast. Well, do you guys sandblast? I guess. What are your operations like? What services do you guys offer there?
Yeah, so predominantly powder coating. We do have a small sandblasting cabinet, but our focus, our niche within the industrial powder coating space is more of the heavy, bulky stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, generally speaking, we will outsource. We work with several different vendors regularly, right, to get stuff turned around quick from a sandblasting or a burn off perspective.
Yeah. So are you like phosphate washing and then going to coat, and you're all batch, correct?
Correct.
Do you have a couple ovens, couple booths? Are you just one, or what sizes are you guys working with?
We have 2 ovens, one of which is 30 feet deep, 11 by 11, and then our second oven is 15 feet deep and about the same from a height and width perspective.
Yep.
So that 30-foot oven is really a differentiator, for us from a kind of a competitive nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so, our primary customer is often somebody who produces big weldments, whether that's long railings or oversized metal frames.
Yep. You've got to have at least one of those big ovens somewhere local.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I can't think of anyone in my area that has an oven that big. I think the biggest one locally is maybe 24 foot. So that's a pretty big piece of equipment. How have the employees of the company and the customers of the company received you with the change? Because I know change is pretty hard for a lot of people. How did that go for you?
It's gone well. It's gone well from an employee perspective, coming in and getting feedback kind of later on. I know that there was a lot of apprehension amongst the employees. And as I mentioned, many of them had been with the company for 10, 20 plus years. And throughout that entire time, there was one owner, and that's the guy that I bought the company from. And so, change, can be a little bit scary. But, coming in, I was very intentional, right, in terms of, communicating to the team that, my intention was not to make any massive changes, being transparent that I do not have powder coating experience, but, I'm curious and I want to learn. And ultimately, I want to take, this company, our company, to the next level. And then, kind of initially, right, kind of early on and to this day, just looking around, at the operation and asking questions, but kind of coming at things from with a fresh set of eyes has been, I think, healthy. And we've been able to make, a number of investments, some of them, very small, going to, Home Depot or ordering just, different tools for the guys in the back to replace ones that were maybe not as functional. And I mean, even that small of stuff has a, outsized impact on morale.
Right. Shows you care and you want their job easier. And
Right. And so we've done a lot to invest in the tools and the resources that make doing our work, at the tactical level, possible. And then, other things, right? Just trying to, invest in, creating a better workplace. And so some of that is kind of extensive house cleaning, decluttering, maybe getting a fresh coat of paint on the walls. So, I think from an employee perspective, it's been fantastic. I very much enjoyed being a leader again in this capacity, where I can have a very direct impact on the lives of my employees. From a customer perspective, again, I think a huge component to the success there has been the continuity that our customers have had with my production manager, who, as I mentioned, has been with the company for a long time, has great relationships with many of our customers. And so, he's still here. That's comforting. He's still the guy often when our customers call.
For the point
But
of
beyond
contact.
that, yeah, but beyond that, he's been kind of the continuity with as I get out into the field and make customer visits, which we were really intentional about in the first 6 months of me, taking over, like getting out, meeting customers, allowing me to kind of understand what different businesses our customers are in, and how can we best support them, and just asking those simple questions of our customers, and starting to build kind of a new era of trust, with the
Yeah.
company and with
Yeah.
me at the helm.
Yeah, building that rapport with customers goes a long way. I know that's for sure. Our main customer, we visit their plant every couple, well, probably twice a year, I'd say. But
Yeah.
just making sure that everything you're doing is right and they're happy with what they're getting and the timelines and all that kind of stuff. And it's nice to see what they're doing on their side of the fence too. To if there's a better way we could package something or get it to them or whatever, small things that just help their team out, and then they like you even more. So what is you kind of mentioned improvements in the building and all that stuff, maybe upgrading some tools and stuff for your employees, make life easier. What's your I don't know if you have like a 1 year, 5 year, 10 year plan, like what's your future look like? What's your goals with the company moving forward?
Good question. I would have to put a disclaimer out there that I'm still kind of building out what that looks like.
Yeah.
But I think kind of coming in to the role and in this industry, what was apparent to me was that it was, it's somewhat fragmented. It's not an industry that's certainly dominated by a few big players.
Correct. Yeah.
Kind of, at a local level, or even, kind of a national level.
Right.
And so I think, for me, there's an opportunity certainly to go bigger. I come from, like I said, I came from Amazon, where, operating around the clock and, being ultra efficient and, with high quality and safety in mind are just habits. And so I think when I look at where I am right now within my current footprint, of 20,000 square feet and, a couple of big ovens, there's an opportunity to grow our business on the one shift that we have currently, to completely optimize it. Beyond that, there's the opportunity to add a second shift and or a third shift. Those come with, complexities and challenges, but just, in terms of growing the business, there's opportunity to do that where I am currently. And the location is a great location. Many of our customers operate, right around us. We're more or less just right in the West Metro. Now, further down the road, I would like to even go bigger in terms of, our capacity to handle large parts. 30 feet, a 30-foot oven, that's a big oven, right? But there's still times where we turn away work, and some of the outfits that can do that even bigger stuff, they're not in and around the Twin Cities. These are kind of few and far between. And so
Yeah.
I think at a high level there is an opportunity to go even bigger and potentially, right, kind of supplement or complement the batch operation, the heavy
Yeah.
bulky, with more traditional automated line, and kind of round out our skill set.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely think there's a lot fewer coders who dabble in those heavier
Yeah,
products. It takes a special group of people to be able to do that daily. It really does, because it's everything's big, it's heavy. How you hang stuff's totally different. There's a lot more safety involved.
right.
You got to think about what the heat's doing to stuff when it's in there hanging heavy parts and all that stuff. So that's definitely a smaller niche in the powder coating world, really. And so there's definitely, I think, like you said, there's a ton of potential for that, because it's something like me. I won't even do it. I don't have the equipment. I don't have the staff. I'm going to stick with my small stuff all day long. That doesn't break my back.
Had I, by some chance, built a powder coating business like you did, Dan, kind of from where I came, like I can tell you, I would not have built a batch operation, right? Like like many others, maybe who start, I would be focused more on like automation, technology, flow, right? And not that that's wrong, but many ways I feel like I'm grateful that I inherited this, a batch system, right? That does kind of the bigger parts, because quite frankly, like it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Different parts, they're complex, just really feats of craftsmanship a lot of times.
Hmm.
Um, and I do think the natural tendency these days is to move more towards kind of the automation and
Yep.
the tech, maximizing throughput. And not that we're not, but this is a pretty good space to be in.
Yeah, yeah, and you can always, like you said, you can always expand and start offering other types of products that you coat. So, and I know there are actually some lines out there. There's one not too far from me that they do the combine head trailers. Those
Yeah,
huge long trailers that move the combine head between fields, all on an automated line. So um, you could easily upgrade the whole facility and just go automated with all your big stuff.
right. Yeah. Some of that would certainly require a new footprint.
Yeah, she would need a much larger facility.
Yeah, but that's cool, to be able to do some of those massive metal works,
Yeah,
Department of Transportation stuff, you name
right.
it.
Yeah,
There's just kind of an appeal there.
yeah. And I don't think that the market for powder coating is very small in the US right now, and it's growing very quickly. So from my experience in sales and visiting with shops that do both powder and liquid, they're moving everything they can over to the powder side. So it's more economical, it's greener, the product's better, it's a quicker turn time on all the parts. Um, you may have a little bit more investment in equipment and all that sort of stuff, but in the long run, it's just a better way to do it. And I think a lot of companies are starting to see that. So as long as it can withstand the temperatures, they're moving everything they can to powder. So I see a lot of opportunity in the future with only 8 months of experience. And you kind of talked about how fragmented powder coating is in general. And I agree 100% with you. There are a ton of garage coders. There's a ton of small, I call myself like a micro coder. We're less than $1 million. I won't get into financials, but I would say anyone doing less than $1 million is a micro coder. I think some of my followers would argue that, or maybe 100,000 or less per year. But I think I'm a micro coder, and I've been in some facilities. I would put you guys a little bit higher. But there are facilities doing over $5 million a year, $10 million a year. And then there's a lot of companies that are bringing the powder coating in-house. And you guys, I believe, do not manufacture anything, correct?
We do not.
Okay. What's your thoughts on with customers you work with? I know from the sales side, a lot of times when we're in there quoting facilities that manufacture but don't code in-house yet, it's because they're starting to realize how much money they're putting into that part of their process. And it makes sense for them to maybe bring it in-house where they can control things. Do you see any potential issues or trouble down the road for custom coders who only specialize in coding?
Yeah. I think that's a risk, right? That even, me being new to the space has identified just in some brief, kind of customer research, right? You'll find, right, metal fabricators or, machinists that do coatings in-house. And I know that, over the years, with this business, with powder coating technologies, we've lost customers to that, right? They've built the process out in-house and, don't need our services anymore. I think, interestingly enough, like I was speaking with one of our customers not too long ago, kind of on this topic. They had done a decent amount of heavy lifting, kind of research the possibility of bringing it in-house, and ultimately they decided against it, largely for the fact that I don't know, a realization or just that what they do best, their primary skill, right, is the fabrication process. And I think what they've seen in different scenarios, maybe where they were looking at kind of vertical or horizontal integration, is as you expand across those areas, you dilute that core competency, and maybe to the point eventually where your brand, your original brand, right, is the best metal fabricator in the business or whatever, is no more. And so I think that there's a risk kind of on both sides. The other piece is that that is specific to this operation, as well as I think kind of others, but the transportation piece involved in powder coating, getting parts to a powder coater. We do not currently have in-house transportation, and so that's a factor too, right? Like just the cost of transporting parts,
Mhm.
right? And kind of whether that's being owned by our customers, or whether that's a cost that they're incurring in the process. And as potentially transportation costs increase in the future, that could kind of add to the risk. But I think, with that being said, the other piece that I've seen just in my short tenure is, again, with kind of the capacity, right, that we have in terms of like a 30-foot oven, and just the size there. Even many customers that we work with that have in-house powder coating, like they don't have 30-foot ovens. They may have 10 or 15, 20-foot ovens. And so again, I think, like, differentiating our business in that way still kind of isolates us a little bit from from the risk of customers taking the process in-house.
Yeah, I definitely think the transportation's a big thing. We're the same way. We offer very limited transportation on parts. We don't have an enclosed truck or trailer or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, but I do know there's a lot of powder coaters in our area that do pick up and deliver, and it seems to be something that those customers really appreciate. So, I think if I was more on a growth trajectory in here, I'd be maybe looking into that. But like you said, it's so hard to, now you're charging them to pick up and drop off. You made it convenient for them, but it is costing them more to do that, which may put a
Right.
little more risk on your side, because it takes away from their bottom line. It does add to yours, but now you're also hiring more staff and maintenance on vehicles and insurance and all that kind of stuff. So there's definitely a lot of moving components to looking into adding that, and the risk and reward type thing on that, which is just another part of business. I definitely don't think people really think about that transportation as much when they're trying to grow a business, on what it would do or would hurt them either way. But I don't want to keep you too long today. I don't want to cut you off either. Did you have anything else you wanted to share with us?
Well, beyond the fact that we're trying to grow, we're actively looking for new business, specifically in that industrial, kind of heavy, bulky, frames, weldment space, as well as, the architectural space is another one that we've got a lot of experience in, railings, staircases, etc. The bigger the better. We've got a talented team, and we're getting better by the day. And so we're very much excited for the future. And I'd just say to Dan, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I look
Yeah,
forward to continuing this conversation with you.
yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely, when we upload this, I'll get all your information from your website, email, all that kind of stuff. Whatever you want to share, we'll put it in the notes down below for anyone who wants to check them out in the Plymouth, Minnesota area. I do know you guys are up in your social media game. I think you mentioned before we started recording. Do you want to mention any of those sites right now?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. We did. We've been in the process over the last couple of months to revamp our website. So that launched last week, and simultaneously, we did the same with a couple social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn being the big ones there.
Yep.
So the intent there will be to try and share pictures and videos of our work. I do think powder coating lends itself well to a lot of that in terms of just how great some of these parts, and with the different types of colors, how great they look. And so
Yeah.
I think from a broader perspective, like getting more and more of that out into the community, whether it's residential or commercial, right, will do a lot to educate kind of everybody around powder coating, right,
Yeah.
and why potentially favorable to whatever type of coating people have been using in the past. So
Right. Yep.
we'll be jumping on
100%
that.
agree with that. Yeah, definitely. I think what I've learned from social media, especially in my business, is the best leads I get are from LinkedIn on that B2B type of realm, which a lot of the stuff you're doing, it sounds like that would fit in there. And I have noticed on your LinkedIn, you guys share some really good photos of some massive projects. So every time I see one and like it, I'm like, man, that just looks like my back hurts right there. So I think
Yeah,
you're definitely doing the right things by sharing all that.
I appreciate it, Dan. Thank you so much.
Yep. Well, I appreciate you for taking the time. I know you're very busy and trying to get all that figured out and learned. Like I said, we'll link all your information down below for anyone who wants to check you guys out. With that being said, I appreciate you for coming on. Thank you, Chad.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Yep.